Hi guys, Craddock here. Here today I've got another video guide, this time on Tal Rasha Twister. So this is a pretty nifty build. New thing in 2.4.1 is increased damage from the Tal Rasha 6 set. So what this allows us to do is we're going to try and take advantage of that extra damage since the multiplier is now higher than even that of Delcir, and see if we can get increased damage from our twister stacks and our Raging Storm twisters. So this is very exciting for me. I hope you'll like the same. Right now I've just got some quick gameplay for you. I bet there are going to be a lot of builds coming out that are very similar, since this is a fairly straightforward build that you might want to try out in the new patch. But my variation focuses on it's more focused for casual players, so not necessarily going to be pushing the highest of high greater risks. It's not really designed for that, but what it does do is it makes gameplay a lot easier when conditions aren't perfect. So things we have that assist in this, we've got a signature, and we've also got the Shame of Delcir belt, which will give us arcane power regeneration when, so even if the map isn't filled up with enemies, we'll still be able to cast our twisters. That's very nice, I like that. And another thing that we have going here is we have a little bit more defense than you would see. The weakness of Tal Rasha is that it doesn't really have as big of defensive bonus as you might see in Delcir, so I tried to make up for a little bit of that, and that's something that you might not see in the meta either, so we'll see. But just wanted to show you a little bit of gameplay, and I hope you like it. Let's get on to the gear and the skills. And here we are in town. So with this build we are using the Tal Rasha set. As you may or may not know, the Tal Rasha set has fairly strong 4 and 6 set bonuses, but they require you to cast all 4 elements cycled within 8 seconds times, at least once. So we've got here Electrocute, Blizzard, Energy Twister, and Explosive Blast. Now, the general idea of this build is just use this Tal Rasha multiplier of up to 3000% to deal loads of damage by stacking up our twisters. Raging Storm, when 2 energy twisters collide, they combine and they will deal double damage. So it's really big if you can find small contained areas or outcroppings, edges, corners that you can stack the twisters on. The environment will allow you to pin the twisters. So if you can find areas where you can make sure that the twister stands still, you should do that.
Surely there is
The
someone out there who would
other
benefit from our
main
aid right now.
thing you're going to want to keep an eye on is Explosive Blast. Because we have the Orb of Infinite Depth in the cube, gives us a lot of damage reduction. A lot of our defense will come from this ability, so being close to enemies is very important. This is very much a melee build. There isn't really a lot of mobility. Because Tal Rasha requires you to place 4 elements on your bar, as you can see my skill bar is pretty much consumed by all the active abilities, means there's not a lot of room for armor or passives since you need at least 2. What we've done here is we've worn the illusory boots instead of, say, something like Nilfers. So we aren't increasing our meteor bonus, but what we do get is the ability to run through enemies. This is key because it lets us slot our second passive ability, which is most likely Magic Weapon Conduit. Conduit helps us manage our arcane power in combination with APoC on source, and in this build I've opted to slot the Shame of Delcir. All those things combined make it a very good, fun spec. As you saw from the gameplay earlier, sometimes I was opting not to kill enemies in confined spaces. I instead saw like there was a well-positioned Oculus Ring. Oculus Ring, you can now put it on your follower and it will proc just as often as it would if you were wearing it, which is very nice. So you can take advantage of that when you see even if it's not perfectly placed ring, it still is a huge multiplicative bonus, so take advantage of that when you can. Note also we have the Inspire ability for our Templar for the extra arcane power, and a few other things. As I mentioned before, this is very much a melee build. In addition to the Explosive Blast and the Orb of Infinite Depth, we also have other defensive items. We've got the Unity and the Cube, reducing our damage taken by 50%. We also have the Halo of our Lease. Ice Armor will now proc a Frost Nova when we take damage, also gives melee damage reduction. This will in turn give us extra damage reduction due to our Ancient Parthan Defenders. Very nice. So with that, we've got Ice Armor Crystallize, our other passive ability, as mentioned, Conduit. Other defensive passives, we have a lot here. Since we don't have to slot Illusionist, that gives us an extra slot. We've got Unwavering Will, increased armor and resistances. The damage is additive, but it's a nice little bonus. Blur for some more passive damage reduction. And I also opted for Unstable Anomaly. Now, if you wanted to go for a more offensive setup, you could run with something like Elemental Exposure. This would increase your damage significantly, add that nice 20% debuff on enemies. It works very well with the Tal Rasha set. So, other items in the build include the Endless Walk set, so while standing still we get up to 100% multiplicative damage. This is really nice. And while you're moving, you also get damage reduction. So in between packs, you'll get just a little bit more cushion, which is really nice. The other item we have here is the Pauldrons of the Skeleton King. There's really no other bonus that comes to mind for the shoulder piece that's more impactful as possibly saving your life a second time. And this, I've read, will proc, the chance for it to proc is ahead of your passive bonus, say, from Unstable Anomaly. So I have yet to see it proc in the Rift, but I'm sure it will save my life eventually. The proc rate for this item is 25%, I believe, so yeah, that's a nice bonus. Okay, I'll quickly go over some of the skills you'll be using in the build to show you a little bit about the rotation. So the reasoning behind slotting something like Electrocute is that it has a speed coefficient of 2. So what this means is when you're getting low on arcane power and the speed coefficient of 2 comes in, since your arcane power pool is pretty low, especially if you don't have that extra roll on the source. When you cast this, your arcane power increases much more gradually than you would see with something like Shock Pulse, Piercing Orb, which is also a great option because it has such a higher proc coefficient. It will also return a lot of arcane power. So this is a great alternative if you want to opt for that. But as you can see, it's jumping a lot more. I prefer the Electrocute Surge of Power rune because it will also give back arcane power for each enemy hit. It jumps up to 2 additional enemies, so that's 3 times. So you can imagine in large groups this will return a lot of arcane power. Now, the other thing you got to remember is that you got your Explosive Blast going off, so you want to make sure that hits enemies, and you're positioning well for your Twisters. And don't forget, you're going to want to cast your Blizzard. That's the outstanding spell. The reason we slot Blizzard here in the cold element is because it's, as far as I know, one of the only abilities that's going to be off that cooldown whenever you need it. And we're using the Snowbound rune here because it won't consume a lot of arcane power. Now you could go theoretically with something else, but every other skill I looked into had either a higher cost or a lower cooldown, so there's a possibility your 4-set defensive bonus would be down and not up to 100% at one point or another. So this allows you to do that. Now let's take a look at the legendary gems we're using here. As you can see here, we've got Bane of the Trapped, so increased damage of enemies that are under control of pairing effects. Well, that's the other thing. Blizzard will help proc your Bane of the Trapped. Not that you need it since you're going to be in melee range anyway. It's still a nice effect. This is multiplicative. We are also using the Bane of the Stricken. Each attack you make against an enemy increases your damage by a little bit, and it ticks fairly fast as long as you're hitting enemies. We also get the increased damage against Rift Guardians. This is especially important for this build because it's so hard to kill Rift Guardians when you increase greater Rift levels for this build, because the Twisters, they go everywhere. Sometimes you can't position a boss correctly to be
Arcane power.
hitting them at all times, so it's very important. And the other gem I've opted to slot is actually Pain Enhancer. Now, this is very important because it'll allow you to attack faster. It means more enemies around you, faster you'll attack, so in big clumps you can pump out like up to 8 Twisters and get that maximum bonus on your Twisted Sword effect. So this is a big component of our damage. We want to be maximizing that as much as possible, and both our resource regen and our attack speed allow us to do that readily on demand whenever we need it. Now, some of you may be going, well, where's the esoteric? Where's your defense? And I actually prefer this setup as opposed to wearing esoteric, but you could, if you want, just put esoteric in place of Pain Enhancer. The difference here is, since we have Pain Enhancer on our gear, we don't need as much attack speed on gear, or may not necessarily need as much attack speed on gear as with the esoteric. One other swap you could do is, looking at the cube here, you could actually wear your Ransler's Folly, which would give you that nice pull effect. You'd be able to pull in all the white mobs, corner them a lot easier, deal damage a lot more effectively. If you're feeling good on resource, you can actually take out the Shaman Del Seer. So this is the item that's going to give us that quick attack speed and that arcane power regeneration when we're at low density. It's, in my opinion, the more usable option, the more user-friendly option. But if you're looking for something more challenging that could possibly push you higher, you'd want to use the Ranslors. And then you would actually cube the Ancient Parthian Defenders here. Just put that in the cube. Now, as far as affixes are concerned, you're going to want to... The big thing, in my opinion, I prefer higher attack speed with a lot of RCR. It probably won't push you quite as high as some other builds, but it's just so, it feels so much better when you're playing, and it's much more engaging to me. So I'm going to recommend getting anywhere from 23% to 29% resource cost reduction. I've opted to go the higher end, so I've got 29% right now. And I'll show this on the written guide, but in general, the places you're going to want to put your resource cost reduction include your shoulder, or 2 rings possibly, and possibly even your weapon. This is because we want to keep a lot of vitality rolls on gear so we can have a lot of defense. We also want to have space for, possibly you could put twister damage on your helmet instead of vitality here, and we also have twister damage here. So those are very good things to have in general. Now, the other thing you're going to want to have for sure is arcane damage. Now, arcane damage on both your amulet and your bracer. I do not have it on my amulet right now, but that would also be a big boost. Something else you could opt for instead of resource cost reduction is to put more area damage on your gear. So your shoulders, you could put area damage. You could also opt instead of resource cost reduction for area damage on your rings. This will increase your damage significantly, especially when you have high crit and high crit hit damage. This is a huge bonus. So that's something to keep in mind. I want to thank you for watching, and hope you enjoy this build. It seems like it's going to be one of my favorites for the next season, and I'll catch you around.
Still I need arcane power. Not ready yet. Need more time. Still waiting. Need more time. If only they could see me now. Not ready yet. Still waiting. Healed. Not ready yet. Need more arcane power. Need more time. Your defenses are nothing. Not ready yet. Still waiting. Need more time. Not ready yet. I don't have enough arcane power. Need more time. You dare attack me? Still waiting. Need more time. Need more arcane power. Not ready yet. Still waiting. How does that feel?
The Rift Guardian is here.
Need more time. Still waiting. Not ready yet. Need more time. I don't have enough arcane power. Not ready yet. Help me! Still waiting. Not ready yet. Need more time. Still waiting. Heal me! Need more time.
Never. You have triumphed.